Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. So I'm Punit Jajodia. I am a software developer and I love React for many reasons, as many others in the world do. And the reason I wanted to give this talk is there's a lot of talk about isomorphic apps and the advantage of JavaScript being used across frontend and backend. And there are a lot of theories about how to reuse code between the frontend and backend, but it's like there's a lot of myths out there, and nobody really talks about how to do it. So a lot of people talk about, okay, yeah, there's you can reuse code between frontend and backend, and that's why you should do JavaScript everywhere. So but then nobody will focus on those aspects of why and what, and then we'll go to how as well. So on the why part, for example, you're building a web app, and for example, say the web app has a color that refers to a brand. That means it has a primary color and a secondary color, and that is stored in a config.js file. Now, as you build the app, you start sending emails to your clients and to your customers, and you want to use the same primary color and the secondary color in your emails as well. Now you can see the problem. In the front end, the primary color and the secondary color will be used by the React app. And since emails will go out from the Node.js backend, the backend will need access to the same colors and the same JavaScript file that contains the hash codes of the colors. So this is just one example where you might need to share code between the front end and the back end. And in general, I believe that common utilities that you build for yourself, like not those like Lodash or not libraries, but basically small utilities that you build, will always be needed to, like, you'll always need to share those between the front end and back end. And especially as we grow towards isomorphic apps and server-side rendering using React, so a lot of people are now rendering backends using React as well. And this is where you need to understand how to share code between the front end and back end. So basically, I like to repeat what I said. Sharing code between front end and back end has several advantages, and especially when you're writing JavaScript, since it's the same programming language, you don't need to use a transpiler or any other, say Java to JavaScript converter or Python to JavaScript converter to share code between the front end and the back end. And by sharing the code between front end and back end, you not only reuse the existing code, but you also prevent bugs, because once you have tested one part of the code, then whether it's used in the front end or the back end, you've tested it across your app. Now, without further ado, I would like to get started on how to get a very minimal setup. So before that, there are so many ways to share code between front end and back end, and I'd like to discuss one or two of them. One is, say you have a front end in a folder called app and back end in a folder called server, and that is so your Git repository looks like root folder. So let me open up Notepad and I'll show you there. So basically your Git repo looks like app and then server. Your app has your React code and server has your Node.js or Express code or whatever. So now you want to share code between this app in code between the code that is in the app folder and the code that is in the server folder. One thing you could do is you could create a Git Sub Module that contains all your shared code. So basically, app will have a sub module called shared, and server will have the same sub module. And every time, so basically now you have two repositories. One repository is your main code, for instance, and another is shared. And now the shared folder will be a sub module that will be contained inside both app and server. And every time you update shared, you need to git pull so that you get all the sub modules and the latest code as well. So this is one way that you can share code across app and server. Another way you can do code sharing is through private npm. For example, you can release your shared folder or all the components or whatever constants, brand colors, whatever I talked about, as an npm package, right? Or npm or yarn package. What that will allow you to do is you can add that package that you built as a dependency for both app and server in your package.json, and when you install it, you'll get that as a dependency, and you can start using all those variables and functions and whatever you put in the shared package. So model number one was, method one was using Git Sub Modules. Now I'll go to method two. So method two is npm packages or yarn packages. Now let's talk about another method. Microservices are all the hype, and for the right reasons, because they allow you to separate your app into smaller manageable parts. And I see that as an opportunity in this app server model as well, because say for example, in the case that I said that you want a common place where you can put all your brand colors across the front end and back end. And if you can build a microservice that, very simple microservice that just gives that out as a JSON service in the REST API, then both the front end and back end can call that microservice to get those values. And it might not be intuitive in the long run, or it might not be too scalable, but if you're just starting out, when you're just building in the first phases of building your product, I would recommend that if you're comfortable with microservices, this is one approach that you can take as well. So basically use microservices. And the advantage with microservices is if you want to take that code to another programming language, say in the long run, if you decide to take that to Python, port that to Python, then you can always do that. That is one advantage with Git Sub Modules and npm packages that you don't get. So this is one advantage of going to microservices. The disadvantage here is more the REST API call takes some time, so that might be one disadvantage. But then when you're just building your app, I think it's a good approach because it saves you time. Now the last method and my favorite one is what I call the monorepo. So how you can get advantage of sharing code is by building a monorepo in your organization. And here's why monorepos came into being, or why this concept is getting popular day by day, is when your organization gets bigger and you start building more and more apps, your design language, every organization has a design language. Google has a design language, Microsoft has a design language, every big organization in the world has a design language. And you don't want that design language to be lost across any apps, whether you build an app or a website or whatever. You want the design flavor of your organization to come in. But when you split your code across different repositories, you cannot enforce that design language is propagated through. So many companies like Google are going for what is called a monorepo structure. In a monorepo structure, what happens is each project is a repo on its. It's just a folder inside a massive repository. So for example, you have two projects called project 1 and project 2. So these will just be two folders in a repository. Now say there's shared component that both project 1 and project 2 use. For example, in the beginning I gave an example of an app that has a primary color and a secondary color, right? So say I will call this UI, inside shared folder there is something called UI const.js. Now this UI const.js contains the color codes for the primary color and the secondary color. Now what we will do is, through the monorepo, project 1 will have a symbolic link to the shared folder. So basically, through that symbolic link, project 1 will have access to the shared UI const.js file, and project 2 will also have, through a symbolic link, access to that file. And you can do this across projects, across front end and back end, and across whatever. I'll come to the implementation details. So let's look at so for beginners who don't understand symbolic link, let's just look at what symbolic link means. So the first answer in Google is, symbolic link is a file system object that points to another file system object. The object being pointed to is called the target. Symbolic links are transparent to users. The link appears as normal files or directories and can be acted upon. What this means is, when you create a symbolic link, that points to another folder. For the user or for most programs operating on that file or folder, it's like the folder is actually there. There's actually no difference between the file or folder actually being there or it being somewhere else. Now there's one small implementation detail which I'll come to, but that's the general idea.
Okay, so once a bit second. So if there is any question regarding the presentation of Node.js and React, so you can just type on the QA. It is on the right side of your broadcast panel. You can type the question and we'll be going to answer that. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you can
Jay.
continue.
Okay, so let me continue. Yeah, please. I'm totally welcome to questions and criticisms or suggestions or any other ideas you might have, because I'm also learning. So I hope to get many questions and many suggestions. So anyway, so now I've covered the 4 techniques, and these are the techniques I know. Obviously, there might be other techniques that I don't understand or know, but then I will talk about how to do the monorepo structure. So basically, what my topic is, we have an Express backend, a React frontend, and all we'll do is what I talked about. So just share one file that contains the primary color and secondary color that you want to use across your frontend and backend code. I'm so sorry. So this is a fresh laptop. I'll start from scratch. So it might not even have Node.js installed. I'll have to check. So, all right, let's go to the nitty gritty of it. So I just started terminal. Now, oops, Node. Yes, we do. All right. For all. So let me fire up Visual Studio Code. Now, out of this. Right. So let me create a folder called code sharing. This will be my root folder. So I'm inside code sharing folder. Now I want to create two apps inside this, the front-end app and the back-end app. For the front-end app, I'll use create React app. So I'll say create React app. Create React app is not there. So do we have yarn? Yes. All right. Yarn add create React app. I want to install create React app globally. So create React app is a project by Facebook that allows you to get started with the React project with just one line of code. Otherwise, so we don't have to set up Babel, Webpack, all this, everything, ES6, all the setup that you need to get started with React. It does it automatically. So let's do create React app. It's not working. Why is it not working? Let me see. Oh, yeah, classic problem. So I need to close the terminal and then start the terminal again. All right, create React app. Still no. So what happened? No. Let's see. All right. Okay. Great. So it's good that we have problems. Yeah, global add doesn't work with create. However, it doesn't actually work. Oh no, this is old issue. So Let's install Express in the meantime so that we can know whether the problem is just for React app or for Yarn with Yarn. Alright, or let's try install -g. And doesn't work. Is our friend. Sorry?
Can you try
Bash?
Yeah, bash.
Yeah, I can do that. Do you have bit of bash in this laptop? No? Okay. Let's first try some npm. Might just work. Right. Alright. It worked with npm. So oops, why do I keep on forgetting? Yes. App. Right. Installing, fetching packages. This might take a couple of minutes. In the meantime, if there's any questions that you might have, because we have this time, I'll be answering those. So do you have any questions?
There is a question only that try with bash.
Oh, that's the suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we worked with npm. So in fact, this was one of the I deliberately started with a clean system, or one that I was not used to, because you need to be able to solve all these problems, right? If you don't see all these problems being solved, then when you try it yourself, I do not want to create this sort of planned webinar where people just see everything working, and then when they try it themselves, then something goes wrong and they don't know how to fix it. So now, if you know that if it doesn't work with Yarn, you can always use npm Yarn. Interesting. So the problem was only with global packages. Let's also install Express generator. 18,000, 19,000, 20,000, 28,000, 21,000, 22,000, 24,000, 25,000, 26,000. Yes, fine. Oh, damn, it's like awesome. So if I do a dir, now I can see that there's a folder called app. Now I will install Express generator globally because I also want an Express backend. So npm install Express generator. Okay. Now my directory has, first I need to create an Express project. So express -h. No, I don't want Paul. All I want is create my app. Okay, perfect. So to create the server Express backend, I just do Express server and done. So now I have the directory structure with app and server. App will contain the React project and server will contain the Express project. Now first I'll set up the server, cd server, install, to download all the dependencies that Express needs. And let me also open another command line, cd /app yarn install here as well to download all the dependencies. Server is ready. I do yarn start. Populate networks. Let's see. Can give access to public networks as well.
Mono repos for small organization or organization with less than 10 repository. Multiple repos seems manageable. I would like to have your opinion here. So what's your opinion for the small organization to have 10 repositories?
I think it makes sense, yeah. But then see, anything you do, I think you should only do once you have an understanding. So instead of completely migrating your organization to a mono repo, because there are going to be surprises with any move, any migrations, right? So it's a process. If you just say that, oh, this is fancy technology, and Punit Jajodia gave a webinar and he said mono repo is nice, so I'll shift my whole organization to mono repo, and that's not going to work. First you need to understand, maybe do one project with mono repo, and maybe, so I always say, if you're building any distributed system, you start with 2 machines, right? And then you start thinking about, okay, how do I scale this to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? So start with 2 projects, do a mono repo, see the advantages, disadvantages, and then if you feel that yes, this is something that I'm comfortable with, that my developers are comfortable with, and that I'm getting value out of it, then yes, I would suggest move to mono repo. But then if so in the beginning of the webinar I mentioned 4 methods for managing these things. So it depends on what you're comfortable with, what your team is comfortable with. If you're a full JS organization, I think like JS end to end, mono repo really, you can squeeze the value out of it. But if you have Python in the back end and JavaScript in the front end, and you have lots of programming languages going on, then it might not be the best choice. So it really depends on what you are comfortable with, what your developers are comfortable with, because mono repo does require an understanding of a bit of DevOps. So it really depends. But what I would say is, do try it out, because so React is bringing support for mono repos now. I'll show you. So React mono repo support. React 2 is going to have native support for mono repo with Lerna, and also I would also recommend looking at Lerna. So Lerna is a tool for managing mono repos, and I haven't tried it yet, but then I've heard really good things. So if you're looking to get started with mono repo, please, I would suggest, instead of setting up your own sort of framework like I am doing here, I would suggest look at something like Lerna, because when you're doing something from scratch like I am, there's always a chance that you might screw up, and because you'll be delivering to a client or delivering a product, it'll be better to take advantage of the ecosystem that someone else has built around anything. So yep, okay, let's continue for front end. Someone is already done. Okay. Oh, the backend is running on 3000. That's why it didn't work with 8000. Yep. Okay. Our backend is on 3000. Our front end is on 3001. Let's wait for the React defaults app to show up. All right. So we have an Express backend, React front end. Now let's do the most minimal setup that we can do. Okay. First, let me show you something. So I will first open the folder of my project. It was in this PC. users. Here users. Let's see, right? Users. And my project was here. Code sharing. All right. So let me open this. All right. So let me try some. So let's say I want to do a file outside const.js, and then I say okay, const. I don't know. I might not have ES6. Let's use ES5. Var say primary underscore color equals say A3B7. I don't know. So 33. So this is our primary color, and secondary color is yellow. Now we are going to use these two. Now say I want to, in my React app, I just want to show a big div using the primary color as the background and the secondary color as the background and primary color in front of it. So let me go to my app, src app.js. All right. Now I'll replace this whole thing. I will say h1. So, and now what I want to do is style. So I don't kill me for this. I'm going to use some inline styles. So let's say primary and color. Where's the auto import? Why don't I have auto import? Why is VS Code not helping me here? I think it understands what I'm trying to say. So problem is React does not allow you to import files outside the src folder. So whatever files are in this folder, src folder, that you can import in React. Any file outside of src folder you cannot import, and that is for security reasons, because otherwise your React code could start pulling up stuff from your file system. So that's why React developers put that limitation, and that is why you don't see VS Code, showing the auto import here, because VS Code knows that this is a React project and you can't import from outside the src folder. So this is the problem. Now how we solve? Now here's the problem statement. The const.js file is here. You want to tell React, or you want to bring this const.js file inside the src folder, right? So that's what I've been talking about from before. How do we do that? Using symlinks. So let's look at. So I'm not used to doing symlinks in Windows. Let me Google that. Complete that. I like complete guides. So what are symbolic links? Okay, NK link. Blah blah blah. Oh, you need to open as my administrator. Let me do that. On Windows 10 creators update. Go to this. No, let me open as administrator. Link target. The soft link. Link link, create a symbolic link. Okay, I want a symbolic link. Done. Lah. Garum. So I want to run this as administrator. Yes. Let's go to cdc drive/users dir users cd sharing. I hope everyone can see the screen. It's really small, but you have to be patient. Now what I want to do is I want to create a symlink from inside the src file folder inside app. So I want to create a symlink here that points to the const.js file outside. How we can do that according to the documentation we just saw is how to be show me pop up nk link target. All right. let's go here. So mk-link const.js // const.js. Do it. Invalid switch. Will this work? All right. It gave me a message that symbolic link created for const.js that points to // const.js. Now let's go to VS Code, and if everything worked correctly, you should have seen a const.js file here, which I can't see. So something is definitely wrong. What's wrong? Let me go to this from the file system. So usually you need to give, maybe you need to give an absolute path. Let's see. Code sharing, const.js is here, and go inside. Yes, here. So let me dig a bit more. There's an example. Link /j C drive, link to folder, original folder. You need to put quotation marks, blah blah blah. Alright, let's try. Why is this /j here? Okay, /j creates a directory junction. So maybe we need to do /j. No, it's a file, so we don't need /j.
We have a time of 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Yeah, that should be enough. That should be enough. So just once the Symlink works, it's just the basic concept, then people can work from their own. Drop as junction, how to delete. And link, blah blah blah. Alright, let's try with absolute. Users /nv /const.js, no, nv/app/src/const.js, and then you want the target to be C drive /nv/const.js. So let's try with absolute URLs. The system cannot find the path specified. Oh, I forgot code sharing. Oh, const.js. How to remove a file? MS-DOS. Oh, long time. Hello, old friend. All right, now let's see. Okay, it says symbolic being created. If I go to my VS Code again, perfect. See, now you can see the const.js file here. And so what I did was I created a Symlink from Symlink inside SRC. And if you see, now I'll show you. If I change something here, so I change the secondary color to red, for instance, red, and save. If I go to the const.js file inside here, now you can see that this also shows red. So now you know that const.js that is outside will always have the latest values for primary and secondary color. Now let's also create the Symlink inside the server. So for example, inside my routes, I want to say title this, and then let's just say primary color. And now I want to, so I can't import right now. Obviously I can import from the outside, but it's always better to create a symlink here as well. So what I will do is, again in the command prompt, I'll go back. I can do it from here. So blah blah blah. Now instead of app and src, what I'll do is server, and here code sharing console. Now another symlink has been created. So now I have a construct.js inside server as well. So now construct.js actually exists in 3 places. On the outside folder, construct.js is the file that I wanted to share, the piece of code that I want to share across the front end and back end. It contains the primary and secondary color, and it's also there inside the src folder inside the React app, and it's also there inside the server folder of the Express app. Now I can start using these variables by importing this file in both the front end and the back end. And this keeps because I've used symlinks, this is consistent. So if I change anything, like I say tertiary, if I add another color, say yellow, and save, what will happen is the construct.js inside the React app and inside the Express app will also change accordingly. So you can also do this. So I did this for just for one file. Now you can start importing this file and using these variables. But what you can do is you can also do this for folders. So you create a shared folder. So now your app will have 3 folders: app, server, and shared. You can put all your common components, whether they're React components or any common code inside them, and then you can use Symlink that folder inside both the React frontend and the server. This was just one simple way that you can share code across frontend and backend, and I've used this extensively in the apps. I'm using this extensively in the apps that I'm building right now, because the simple example I gave before, your web UI and your email UI has to use the same colors. This is just one example that you can really relate to, right? And if your developers are, so I know if you've developed long enough, you have different versions of, there's this file called construct.js that is spread across different projects and across your front end and back end, right? Everyone has that stupid construct.js, and then you forget to update that in one place, and then you see that, why is this color not there? And then you fight with yourself. You spend 5 hours on Stack Overflow, and then you realize that one app was using one construct.js and another app was using another construct.js when they should have been using the same one. Or you forgot to copy some code from one construct.js to another construct.js. So forget construct.js, just have one place for all your global data. And this was just, I just did an example of variables, but you can also create functions, and you can expand from this starting point. So, and the concept of monorepo is, what you would do is, say you had React components that you are building that you want to use across projects. For example, your company has, so what you could do is you could create a folder called React components, and you could through Symlink you could integrate that into all your React projects. That means any developer builds a React component, that is instantly available to all your React projects. How awesome is that? And the benefit is, so now you have also integrated testing into that, all right? And then now, because other people might be using your code through Symlinks, other people are maybe using the component that you have built, now it becomes the developer's responsibility to write test for those components as well. Because now, if for example you wrote one small component and you don't even know some other guy in some other project is using it, and then if that breaks, they will come to you and say, right, my code broke, why did you not write good code? So this is also one way to make sure that your developers become more responsible. They become more accountable with the code they write, because they don't even know where the code might be being used. So, but then there's also this risk that things might break, but I think it's a risk worth taking, because the advantages of a monorepo structure, I think, outweigh the possible issues. So that was it. I think it does. I think for those who get this basic setup working, I think we'll have share the recording of this video as well. So if you want to go back, if you want to look at how I did this setup, you can always do that. And this also works with Linux. And the benefit is, so if you put this on Git, for example, if I upload this to Git and someone pulls it on a Linux machine, then the Symlink structure works automatically. So Git preserves the Symlink structure. That means you do not have to do any setup for this to work. Now there are some other things with ES6 and some setups, that extra setup that you need to do if you are using ES6, but I will leave that for the next lecture, and I leave you here. Any questions? I have 4 more minutes. Any questions that anybody might have? This is the time to ask. Do we have any questions?
No, we don't have. Can you say some difference between you told about ECS,
ES6,
ES6 and EX7? So what's the difference of them?
ES5.
Yeah, ES5.
Oh,
Okay.
So difference is ES6 has a lot of syntactic sugar. Like it makes your life so much easier. I don't think I can go back to ES5 ever. Like once you've started using ES6, it's like if you use React, you'll start using ES6. So it's not like you need to spend time and learn ES6. I think if you do one project in React, automatically you're an ES6 developer. So I was really frustrated when I was learning React for the first time. I was like, what is this arrow function and all that? But then once I got used to it, I really enjoyed the experience. So yeah, I think if you're still writing code in ES5, I think you're gonna be a dinosaur pretty soon. So either go for TypeScript, CoffeeScript, or at least ES6 hune paryo, right? If you can't move to CoffeeScript or TypeScript, that's the best. If you could do that, that's even better. But at least ES6 se seekhnai paryo abo.
Okay, so there is one question. Does the original cons.js live on
a separate? No.
Yeah.
So that was the whole concept of mono repo, right?
Yes.
So everything is in the same repo. So the folder structure is like this: app. So app contains our React code. Server contains our backend code, and const.js or whatever shared components you want to do, they live outside both app and server. And all this goes into one repo. So if someone pulls the code, they get access to the app, the server, and the common code, all of it at once. And the Symlink structure works like Git preserves that Symlink structure, so you don't have to do anything to get started. Just pull the code, go to app, yarn install, yarn start, go to server, cd server, yarn install, yarn start, and the whole setup will work. Nothing else to do. And that's one of the reasons why I love this setup very much. So thank you for the question. And yeah, we have 2 more amazing speakers lined up, and I'm so excited to hear what they have to say. So thank you so much. This was Punit Jajodia, and goodbye, good evening, good night, bye-bye.